After Jeff Olson's brush with death, having rolled his SUV 7 times in an accident that killed his wife and 14-month-old son, Jeff had a very long recovery. But he was changed by the experience. The oneness that he experienced in heaven seemed to have given him an insight into the people around him, walking past him in his room, in the hallway, in the hospital. He was able to see into them in a surprisingly new way. Instead of excerpting from what he said, I'll just read his account to you. Again, it's incredible. He said, I knew each person I saw personally. I knew their joys and their sorrows. I knew their love, their hate, their pain, their secrets. I knew everything about them, every detail, every motivation and outcome. I could see their emotion that they were feeling, intuitively why they were feeling it. In an instant, with no contemplation, I knew them almost as well as I knew myself, their hearts. I looked into the face of a woman in her early 30s and felt her elation at the anticipated marriage proposal from her boyfriend. I knew that this was the second time around for her, but this also was Mr. Right. I watched as a man in his late 40s approached me. I felt his guilt over words that he'd had with his brother. I could see how his pride would never allow him to take back or apologize what he had said, and how that disjointed him spiritually. He was literally splitting in two between remorse and arrogance. Another woman walked toward me from the opposite direction. She looked down as she passed. It was almost as if she saw me. I experienced her pain from the abuse that she had received as a child. I saw how broken it made her feel. I felt how damaged and unworthy she had viewed herself for years and how she felt that way still. At the same time, I also felt her capacity to love and her strength because of what she'd been through. I saw how her compassion was being drowned out by her shame. What if I could feel every person's hurt and joy and know every motivation and reason for their action or thought? What if I could feel the unconditional love I was now experiencing for every soul? I marveled at my perceptions. Most of my life, I had actually avoided people. Jesus' words then rushed into my recollection. Inasmuch as ye have done it to the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me. Was he talking about the awareness that I was now experiencing? Did he feel the same thing I was feeling? Was this how he walked the earth in consciousness of knowing each individual soul? We are all linked and equal in God's eyes. And I was seeing it and feeling it and experiencing it. Perhaps because of Paul the Apostle's own near-death experience, he learned to see people this way too, which he briefly alluded to in his second letter to the Corinthians in chapter 5. I quoted this passage last week about groaning in this earthly tent, longing to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling. Remember that from last week? Well, a few verses later, Paul says, therefore, we no longer regard people from an earthly point of view, for we have the mind of Christ. Paul describes how he sees now through the lens of the new creation. And it sounds like Jeff experienced something like that too. Now, the challenge for all of us is to learn to look at people through Jesus' eyes, to see past the exterior, which distracts and can sometimes trigger us, to see their heart, to perceive their spiritual needs, the hurts and the scars that each person bears, and to look at those people with empathy, compassion. Now, it's hard, right? Because we often feel wounded and vulnerable ourselves. But you know what, folks? Our own pain can help us to imagine theirs. Our suffering can help us be empathetic toward others. Philo of Alexandria is a philosopher about 150 years before Jesus. He said, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a great battle. So today, take a moment to think of people that God has put into your life and ask Him to help you see them with the eyes of Christ and to reach out with fresh empathy and kindness. That's today's Lenten vision, and I'll see you tomorrow.